Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Good evening. I'd like to open the Monday, March 13th, 2023 meeting of the Falmouth Select Board. It is now 6 o'clock, and we would like to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect to the town's litigating position, and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the ASPME Unit A.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor by roll call.
Brown, aye. Patterson, aye.
Scott Price, aye.
Zelinski, aye.
Taylor, aye. And we will return to open session at 6:30. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the open session of the March 13th, 2023 Falmouth Select Board meeting. We are returning from executive session. In executive session, we have authorized the town manager to sign the TIVA opioid settlement agreements when they are received by the town. Secondly, we discussed strategy with respect to collective bargaining with ASME Unit A, and we did not take a vote on that matter at this time. I would ask everyone to please silence your cell phones, and if anyone is video or audio taping this public meeting, please notify me as the chair. Well, thank you. Okay, I would ask you to all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will begin with recognitions. Any recognitions from the board?
Madam Chair, I have a recognition. We received an email from Karen Witherington, who is actually not a Falmouth resident, but she's familiar with a woman who is a Falmouth resident and has a business here. Her name is Tiana, and her business is called Decorated Dough. And she was very impressed by how much Tiana worked with the community and her small business, and just wanted her to be recognized in some way. And she wasn't able to submit a recommendation for the Citizen of the Year award, but she was very adamant that she wanted Tiana to be recognized as a contributing member to the Falmouth community, and so I said that I would do that. So I want to recognize Tiana and her business and thank her for being such a great Falmouth resident.
Very nice.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson?
We also might mention the Chamber's designation of the Citizen of the Year, the Reverend Nell Fields of the Congregational Church of East Falmouth. Waquoit.
Waquoit Congregational Church. You stole my thunder,
Oh,
Mr.
excuse
Patterson.
me. No, you can, go ahead.
I just presented their proclamation to them on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And it was wonderful, and I was going to add in that she is the Outstanding Citizen of the Year, and congratulations to Reverend Nell Fields.
And there's a great article in the Enterprise, so you can actually
Real,
read the details.
it's a real community hub there.
Yeah.
They hosted us just this last week with another summit on wastewater discussion, so.
Amazing. Okay, any other recognitions from the board? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to announcements. I have two announcements. The first announcement is you'll see that I have listed a change in agenda practice. And when I met with Town Manager Johnson Staub this week on Wednesday, we're going to change it up a little bit. Instead of reading his preliminary report at the very beginning of our meetings, we're going to change that up, and he is going to read his report and the pieces of his report as they are pertinent to all the individual items on the agenda. So we're going to try that. We're going to shake it up a little bit and see if that works better. The other piece is that your written report will continue to be in the packet as you get it every week. We've had a lot of good feedback on those reports. We're just going to report them out differently. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second announcement I have is just a reminder about the nitrogen control, the Town Code, Chapter 237, in terms of using fertilizer. Please make sure that you refer to this on our website, and I'm just going to read the recommendation. The town strongly recommends that nitrogen be applied at the lowest rate necessary. Any single application of nitrogen should not exceed 0.5 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. An annual aggregate total application of nitrogen should not exceed 1.5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Please take a look at this. It's about protecting our wetlands. I mean, it is our bylaw.
And we've had some heavy rains, so it's really important not to put a lot of fertilizer down, only to have it all washed away. It's not doing your grass or your plants any good anyway. So
Good point.
proper management is so critical, and it'll help us in fighting this nitrogen problem that we have in our estuaries.
And if you happen to see your neighbor doing it and he doesn't know about the nitrogen bylaw, just let him know and he'll probably be happy to stop doing it.
You know, I think a lot of it is people just unaware or somewhat
Right.
naive about how they use their fertilizer. And it is that educational process, I think, is really important.
Exactly. I had a next door neighbor who just bought his house, several years ago, but I saw him out there and he was taking a hoe and he's ripping out the tall grass that grows along the shore. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I'm gonna rip all this junk out and I'm gonna plant a nice lawn. And I said, geez, you know, we have this nutrient management bylaw and you got Wetlands Protection Act. I said, you really need to look into being a waterfront property owner. And he goes, oh, really? I had no idea. So he went and looked it up and he came back a couple days later and he goes, wow, I'm glad you told me that. I could have gotten in some trouble.
Certainly. Okay, any other announcements from the board?
Yes, please. Tomorrow at 6 PM, I think it is, White Ribbon Day is going to be at the Falmouth Library, and Tom Kirkman from Falmouth is going to be one of the leaders of that event. And it's really just a time for men to come out and just say, you know, we don't tolerate violence of any kind, especially against women. So I'll be there, and it's really just a symbolic statement of our position on this, so. Hope to see some guys over there. And then also, we just got a note today for Together We Can. They're looking for donations for the senior event at the rec center where the kids have the alternative evening of fun and alcohol-free, what do they call it, celebrations after prom. So they're looking for some money, and you can go to togetherwecan.org and see if you want to chip in a couple of bucks. So those are my two announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anything else from the board?
No.
Okay, public comment. Public comment may be made on routine matters not on the agenda this evening, and your comments are limited to 2 minutes. Please introduce yourself. Since the matter has not been included on the agenda, the Select Board will not participate in any conversation or discussion on your topic. Is anyone here for public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is John Batter. I'm a member of the senior men's group. I want to talk to you about a couple of things. About 2 years ago, I fell and injured myself quite badly and had a service dog that helped me. I couldn't get around. When the senior center reopened in January of 2021, 22 rather, they refused entry to my dog, even though state and federal law requires it. The manager of the center said that she would talk to the town officials to find out whether they could allow my dog into the meeting. And the fact of the matter is, I don't think she ever did, because it's on the books that service dogs are allowed in any meeting where the person requires it. In May of 22, I was finally informed that I could bring my service dog in. That was now after 5 months of having to leave the dog out in the car, part of it for the freezing winter, while I got along without him. And we also found out, much to our surprise, that there had been a document written the year before that allowed service dogs into it, but that by the head of the service center, but she just chose to ignore that. And there's also a Boston newspaper article, I don't know if you've seen it or not, that criticized the operation of the senior center. The second problem I have with the senior management of the senior center is that the men's group was demanded to become an all-gender coffee and conversation group in the early fall of 2022. Women were never denied entrance. As a matter of fact, we've had quite a few women come and join and sit and listen to us, to our joy, either because they had helped to bring their partner or because they were interested in the subject that we were going to discuss at that time. But in retaliation, unilateral decisions were made to omit the men's group
Sir,
From the-
you're past your 2 minutes.
I'll
You're
be
at
done in a
3.
minute, in 30 seconds. For the November, December calendar, and move our meetings from Wednesday to Mondays. Unfortunately, one of our members can't make it on Mondays, and he's quite crippled. And also, they demand that all men's group speakers be approved by the senior center. Now, I don't know whether she's ever heard of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, but no one tells me who I can listen to.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone else here for public comment? I'm going to go to you, sir, then I'll go to you and Mr. Moriarty. And then don't worry, Dale, I'll get you too. Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir, please.
Good evening. Ray Benson, Precinct 4. The Senior Center Men's Group for many years has met twice a month to talk about our concerns and issues. We sometimes invite guest speakers to talk about our special interests. 4 months ago, when the November-December senior newsletter was published, I noticed the men's group had been omitted from the list of activities and from the calendar. And in place of that was a new program called Coffee and Conversation that was in the same time slot as our former meeting. We asked to meet with the director about the elimination of the men's group, and to ensure transparency, we invited a reporter from the Falmouth Enterprise to attend. The director tried to say that she never meant to eliminate the men's group, however, was unable to explain how we were taken off the calendar, taken off the list of activities, and the new conversation group was plugged into our time slot. The men's group finally got scheduled on a different day, as John just mentioned, for a shorter amount of time. We used to have 90 minutes, now we're down to 60. And a requirement that any guest speaker be approved by the director. Something new. The men's group finally, we got rescheduled. Just because she can do this doesn't mean that it's right. She's going out of her way to make it difficult for us to have our program and to invite the people that we want. The Falmouth Senior Center has a code of conduct policy, and it states, "Do not bully or take unfair advantage of any participant, volunteer, or staff." Should not this be applied to the director as well? All we ask for is fair treatment, be provided with our 90-minute time slot to talk about our concerns and issues as senior men in the town of Falmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Paul Fosinski. I reside in Precinct 1. I would like to speak to the board tonight about the Falmouth Senior Center Code of Conduct policy regarding food and drinks. The policy states, food and drinks may only be consumed in the cafe area and the patio and other areas as appointed by the Falmouth Senior Center. Food and drinks not purchased in the Falmouth Cafe are not permitted in the building. This means that any senior entering the Falmouth Senior Center with a cup of coffee or a food item is reported to the director for code violation. There was no such food policy at the old senior center. Seniors could enjoy their refreshments at their meetings or their activities without restrictions. We have tried to negotiate with the director to remove this policy, unsuccessfully. We have submitted joint letters with other groups to the director requesting elimination of this food drink policy. Again, the response from the director is no. The reason given by the director for this policy is to protect the safety of participants, volunteers, staff, and to preserve and protect the seniors' materials, equipment, facilities, and grounds. But the protection of the personnel and equipment is vital to all the facilities at the town hall. All of the materials and equipment and facilities at the Falmouth Police Department, DPW, or the Town Hall less important than those at the senior center? No. Therefore, the reasons given to justify this just don't stand up. No other town-owned facility has such a food-drink policy. The policy is discriminatory. Why are Falmouth seniors forced to purchase their refreshments at a town-operated cafe when visitors and staff of any other town facility can bring refreshments from their home or anywhere else without an exception? This, in my opinion, is an example of age discrimination, and as it only applies to Falmouth seniors at the Falmouth Senior Center. I am asking the board tonight to restore the rights and freedoms of all the senior citizens. I respectfully request that the Select Board notify the director of the Falmouth Senior Center to remove this food drink policy from the Falmouth Senior Center Code of Conduct. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moriarty? I'll take those. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Dave Moriarty, Precinct 6. I just wanted to make a public announcement. This week in New Jersey, 3 congressmen are holding a congressional hearing on the unprecedented whale death of the last couple of months that's washed up on the beaches of New Jersey and New York. And I'm going to go down and testify with, what we've been taking records and recording on the 7 deaths on the Block Island wind turbine project. And that's since 2016, these whale deaths have mysteriously happened. As soon as the mapping and the sonar they used to map the ocean bottom started to occur, the whales started to die. If I want to leave the board and the people of Falmouth, if I leave them with anything tonight, I just want you to know that a deaf whale is a dead whale. And
Mr. Moriarty,
sonar,
Mr. Moriarty, could you
excuse
direct-
me,
just
and the
direct it
sonar
to the
they're
board?
using to map the ocean floor is deafening. They can't communicate with themselves anymore. They can't communicate with their calves. They can't navigate. What happens when they can't navigate? They go right into the shipping lane. They go right into a fishing gear. It's obscene what's happening. We know what's happening. It's the same issue as like 15 years ago when I tried to explain what infrasound was to the town. Now, is it going to take another 15 years of all these whale deaths and these unintended consequences of these, in my opinion, old antiquated technology that causes more trouble than it solves? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Capp? I have you on my list.
Good evening, and thank you so much for letting me come and talk to you. I do have a hoarse voice, so hopefully you can hear me. I wanted to come and talk about the concerns regarding the DEI officer job description.
Could you share your
Not
name
for
with
me.
us?
Excuse me?
Could you tell us your name?
Introduce
Certainly.
yourself.
It's Dale Kapp, K-A-P-P, Precinct 3, a town meeting member and chair of the Affirmative Action Committee. And I'm here to talk to you all tonight about the new DEI officer job description. In May, Ms. Taylor, you had directed the town manager, acting town manager, to go ahead and start the process again of updating the job description and going forward and hiring a DEI officer. And due to unforeseen circumstances that happened in the town relative to some changes in town manager and director of personnel, this didn't get started until August 1st, but it did get started, and we received a email draft of the first I received a draft, an email of the first draft. And there were some definite concerns with that draft, and I replied to Mr. Johnson-Staub. And Anjali I hope that's how you say your name, Anjali. Miss Scott Pierce. She responded and said, hey, why don't we have a meeting and talk about this, because she wanted to come up to date on the history of the position, and then also just have some comments on the position description. So we did that, and we were going to hear back on a draft, or what I thought was a draft. But as it turns out, on March 6th, I received an email that contained in it a final job description that was adopted on March 6th. That was a surprise to me, because through all this time, I've been going back and forth, emailing, trying to understand, okay, are we talking about this? What's going on? And I certainly received emails updating me on things that were happening relative to moving the position forward, for sure, but just not on the document itself. And so the major concern with the adopted DEI position is that it totally, absolutely changes the focus of what that position was when we had it approved in April of, I think that was, when did we have that approved? April of 2020. And the focus has changed now from being something that is responsive to the community in terms of their needs for discussion, training, and improvement to the DEI climate, to the diversity, equity, and inclusion climate of Falmouth, not unlike other towns, but we just wanted to work on Falmouth and start getting Falmouth up to speed with it.
I'm going to need you to
Okay.
wrap it up, okay?
And so, what I will do is, Dr. Sandy Feynman is here with us, Silva is here with us to talk about, the exact changes that have occurred from the intent of the original approved, town meeting approved description to the one that we have now received, which there's a big change in the purpose and focus. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Dube, you're up next.
Richard Dube, Precinct 6. Back when you were debating what to do with the surplus police department rifles, you were presented with Exhibit B as part of the procurement package, which was a letter from Powderhorn stating that they would only be sold to law enforcement, local law enforcement. At the time of your discussion, on the 22nd of May of last year, Member Scott Price asked how the board would manage potential enforcement of that policy. And Member Brown suggested that town manager would execute the policies of the board and be responsible for that. The contract was signed on the 26th of May. I have no idea what date, the exact date that the rifles were delivered. I would say sometime in June. So we had July, August, September, October, November, December, January. Now we're into February. February, we're into March. So we had 8 months, at which time town manager was supposed to be verifying that these were sold to local law enforcement. At last week's meeting, I presented you with a spreadsheet, which is data that I put together from the Department of Criminal Justice Information Services, but we have yet to have a report from town manager as to Exhibit B, as to whether Powderhorn actually did sell only to local law enforcement. As of this spreadsheet, 5 rifles were unaccounted for. That's as of January 1. So we don't know, as of January 1, what happened to those rifles. They could have been sold out of state, which would have been something that Exhibit B, it would have been in defiance of Exhibit B. So what I am asking is for the board to place an agenda item in the foreseeable future where we could get a report from town manager as to exactly what happened to all of the rifles, whether they did live up to Exhibit B and were sold only to local law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dube. Mr. Finneran?
Hi, Mark Finneran, Grand Ave. I just wanted to point out that another time the agenda wasn't in the enterprise, and I mean, not everyone in town that has interest in what goes on here comes to every meeting like I do. They peruse the enterprise and see if there's an item that interests them. Sometimes people know things are coming up, and it almost used to never happen, and it's happening quite often in the last year, I have to admit. And I understand that if you list it on the front here, it satisfies the open meeting law. But the people in town are used to looking at the enterprise on Friday in the front section and seeing the selectmen's agenda. And again, it's another time it's not there.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Finneran.
just one more thing. I'd like to point out to Mr. Dube that the most law-abiding demographic in the United States of America is licensed gun owners. And I just don't understand. If he was really concerned with things, I mean, you look at mass shootings.
Yes.
This is not a debate time.
Yes, we cannot speak on
Oh,
other people's
sorry.
public comments.
I didn't read the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Finneran. Dr. Feynman Silva? Certainly. Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm Sandy Feynman Silva, Precinct 2. And I wanted to follow up on what Dale mentioned earlier with respect to the diversity, the article, I should say the Article 31 that was passed by town meeting in spring of 2020 to create the position of Affirmative Action Diversity Outreach Coordinator. And I will read a paragraph or two from that particular article I just gave you copies of. The Town of Falmouth Affirmative Action Diversity Committee and local citizens believe there is a lack of systematic outreach to community members in the areas of affirmative action, education, consciousness raising, community outreach, advocacy, handling of hate-based incidents, conflict resolution, and other areas of affirmative action and diversity education outreach. This leadership deficit retards progress toward an improved social climate in Falmouth, inhibits cross-group understandings and tolerance, and delays cross-group encounters. The article was rather lengthy and gave many ways in which this person could work to promote cross-group understanding, building a better climate of understanding and acceptance in our community. They would serve as a liaison with local citizens, and I'm quoting from the article, government liaison with local citizens, government branches, civic organizations, and other organizations, serve as affirmative action liaison with local and regional groups and organizations representing ethnic, racial, religious, gender-based, ability-based, veterans, and other groups, and mentions many groups that could be liaised with, attend meetings and serve as liaison to local and regional affirmative action-related organizations, and so forth. So the point is that, again, the draft job description that is circulating, that seems to be virtually a done deal, focuses the job of this particular individual to be hired to be almost exclusively within the confines of town hall, focusing on the 350 or 400 people that work in town hall rather than the more than 30,000 residents of our town. And we really urge you to open up the process, to put the job description on a forthcoming agenda for this board, and let us produce a job description that really reflects the needs of the community. We want a person that the community can trust, that members of the community can go to when they have a problem. In fact, the problem that's going on at the senior center seems to have a gender component. We may need to have this affirmative action person work with people at the senior center and the so-called men's group to solve those conflicts. So I urge you to put this item on the agenda for your next meeting. or very soon thereafter, so that we can get to work when we work on hiring this person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, we will move on to committee interviews, and we have interview, vote, and appoint. Yes, thank you. To appoint Affordable Housing Committee, Chena Mapp, please come up.
Good evening, I'm Chena Mapp from Precinct 1.
Good evening, Chena. Anything you would like to tell us about yourself? We do have your application, but is there anything you'd like us to know about you that's not included on this?
I'm just a community member seeking to do my part. I'm a career educator, and I just try to live my life by leaving people, places, and things better than I find them.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Questions, comments?
I'm somewhat familiar with Ms. Mapp because she's been very active with the League of Women Voters. She reminded me when it was time to pay my dues, and that was very helpful.
Oh,
so she's making that group better.
And Chena, I do see that you've attended some of the meetings for this committee.
I have.
Madam Chair, I'd move approval of Chena Mapp to an unexpired term ending June 30th, 2024, the Affordable Housing Committee.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Welcome aboard.
Thank you for your help with this very important issue.
Okay, we will now begin our public hearings, and our first hearing, if I could have Ms. Scott Price read the notice, and then I'd like to turn it to the town manager for a minute.
Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that Falmouth Cinema LLC, doing business as Falmouth Cinema Pub, has applied for an alteration of premises and for a change of category from a wine and malt beverages license to an all-alcoholic beverages license to be exercised at 137 T-Ticket Highway, East Falmouth, MA. A hearing will be held in the Select Board's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, March 13th, 2023, at 6:45 p.m. on the above application. Per order of Select Board, publication date Friday, March 3rd, 2023, Falmouth Enterprise.
Mr. Johnson-Staub?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as you just heard, there are two things that the applicant is seeking today. One is an alteration of premise, and the other is a change from a wine and malt license to an all-alcohol license. I'm told that the Cinema Pub completed significant renovations, and that is the reason the alteration of premise is required so that the license is consistent with the new layout. The staff have reviewed the application and raised no concerns.
Attorney Ament, I'm assuming you are here to represent the applicant.
That's correct, correct, Madam Chairman, and thank you very much. For the record, I am Bob Ament. I'm a Falmouth attorney, a Falmouth resident, but I'm here as attorney for Falmouth Cinema Pub, which is the business name for Falmouth Cinema LLC, a Massachusetts limited liability company, which operates the movie theater in Falmouth Mall. Falmouth Cinema has had a license from this board since 2009 when they, first rented the property at, that is the movie theater. So in the past year, the theater has been substantially renovated inside. Doesn't look different from the outside, but the theater's been renovated inside. The area that the theaters take up hasn't changed. It's just that the theater is more comfortable. The seats are much more roomy. There's only 235 seats in the theaters. Back in 2007, there were 800 seats in the theaters. Starting in 2009, when Falmouth Cinema Pub took over, they reduced the number of seats to about 400 and started serving food and beer and wine to moviegoers. I have a picture of the renovations that were made, which you'll get to see. So the theaters have been tremendously renovated. It's very comfortable. I've had the pleasure of being at two movies in the new theater, and you can see what it looks like now. So even though the exterior wasn't changed, the space wasn't changed in size, the town considered this might be an alteration of premises. Some $237,000 was spent on renovating it, and they said we should get a alteration of premises permit. We should amend the license for that. And that came up in the context of our request to change the classification of the category of the license from a beer and wine to an all-alcohol license. That's the second part of the request. Two requests tonight to amend the license. One, alter the premises, which the work has actually been done, and two, the change in category for the all-alcoholic licenses. I'll say again that the license has been in place since 2009, I don't believe with no issues. The manager is Brian Haney, who remains the manager. Unable to be here tonight, regrettably, but he's out of the country. There is one wrinkle that I'd like you to take special note of, and as I've told the board in correspondence, in that, as you know, notice is required to any abutters within 500 feet of the licensed premises. And the licensed premises, for purposes of determining who's entitled to notice, is the entire property. Well, the Falmouth Mall is a very large piece of property, and all those, there are a lot of notices. And in addition to all abutters, the state law requires that a particular notice be given to any churches or schools for that matter, but we're concerned about a church. And we were notified by the assessor's office that there is a church that has space in the Falmouth Trade Center on Spring Bars Road. Therefore, we gave the specialized notice to the church by certified mail, stating that they had a right to come and express any objection to the license, although, again, this is just a change in license, not a new license. And Chapter 138, Section 16C says that in order to grant a license or a change of license, when there is a church within 500 feet, the select board, that is the local licensing authority, must determine in writing and after a hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of the church. I'd note that even though the trade center that rents space, a small bit of space to a church, is within 500 feet of Falmouth Mall, it's actually more than 1,100 feet away from the theater building. And of course, all of the liquor service is inside the theater building. So I think that the board can easily make that finding, and I'd ask you to do so. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions from the board? Mr. Zelinski?
Will the hours change? What are the...
No, there's
the
no
operating
changes
hours?
to the license at all, except for the, there are no changes to the license except what we're requesting, which is the change in alterations, that is the creation of the stadium seating or tiered seating, and all alcoholic license. And of course, all the alcohol is served to moviegoers. There's no bar of any kind in the building.
Mr. Patterson?
There's a restaurant in that complex.
Oh, yes.
I think
Well,
has
it's
an
not-
alcoholic license, as I recall.
Well, there's no restaurant. The only seating is.
No, I'm not talking about the theater. I'm talking about where the church is located.
Oh, yes, that's true. There is a
Much closer.
licensed establishment in the very same building.
Exactly. That's the
We have no
question.
reason to think that the church has any concern. It's just that the statute requires the select board to make a certain finding and take a vote because there is a church on the assessor's records.
Mr. Brown?
I would just comment that I did attend this theater recently, and I really enjoyed the new amenities. They had a very enjoyable meal with a nice movie, and I think it would be a nice chance for them to get some money back that they've invested. So I'd be in favor of it.
I don't see anything wrong with it.
So do we need to have a finding then that this is not going to be adversely affect the services of this church?
The statute is very specific. and it requires the local licensing authority to determine in writing after a hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of the church. So I'd ask you to make that very finding.
We would have to have that as a finding and put it in writing and send it out, correct?
Yeah,
And we
that's
have
how
to,
I-
so do we vote on that now that we will write the letter, or vote on it afterwards?
You're asking if if it could be conditional?
Is it is it contingent one upon the other?
Or which order do we do it? Do we vote now and say, yes, we'll sign it once it's written, or do we wait until it's written and then we sign it?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
my
please.
suggestion would be that this would be a finding as part of this decision. So you would,
Yes.
you would vote that finding as part of your overall vote to approve the license if that is the board's inclination.
Okay.
And we could do that after we close the hearing.
Okay.
Anything else,
No.
Attorney Ahmet? Anything else from the board?
No.
Any public comment regarding this license? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Discussion among the board?
I would move approval as requested with the finding that there will be no detrimental impact to the church.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Madam Chair, can I clarify?
Yes,
I think
please.
for the record, we want that motion to state that there would be no detriment to the educational or spiritual
Activities.
of the church.
So moved.
Yeah, second.
Okay, so we have an amended motion and a second.
Is there, do we need to provide opportunity for public comment?
I did that before we closed the
Oh,
hearing.
sure, excuse me. Well,
What's your question? Do you have another question, Mr. Patterson?
no,
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a second hearing for Anejo Bistro.
Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that Dos Niños Incorporated, doing business as Añejo Mexican Bistro, has applied for an alteration of premises to its all-alcohol common victual license to be exercised at 188 Main Street, Falmouth, MA. A hearing will be held in the Select Board Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, March 13, 2023, at 6:45 p.m. on the above application. Per order of the Select Board, publication date Friday, February 24th, 2023, Falmouth Enterprise.
Okay, I'm going to go to Mr. Johnson-Staub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is seeking to add additional outdoor seating to its licensed premise. The seats being added represent a portion of the temporary outdoor seating authorized under the governor's emergency order issued during the pandemic. The increase in seating is less than 10%, and thus a flow-neutral variance is not required. Staff have reviewed the application and raised no concerns.
Okay, and you are here for the applicant. Please
Yes, I am.
introduce yourselves.
My name is Jesse Kersey. I'm one of the owners. This is the other owner, Jamie Supernut.
Questions from the board regarding this,
One
Mr.
about
Brown?
the plan, looking at the outdoor seating, and there's two tables with a blue X cut through them. Does that indicate that those tables will be removed?
So yeah, those are going to be removed because the original application was for 16 extra seats, and that didn't meet the wastewater percentage, the 10% that was just discussed. And so Phyllis, who's been helping us through this, just recommended, I think through the advisement of the Selectman's office, to just remove the amount of seats needed to remove to get to that 10%. So we dropped it down to 9, and those are the tables that we're going to be removing.
Okay, thank you.
We do also have an updated plan that just has the seats that we're proposing, not with the ones Xed
This is
out.
good enough.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
Looks fine.
Okay, any public comment on the request on this license? Anything else from the applicant?
Nope, nothing.
Just comment that I'm glad to see another restaurant coming forward to make the outdoor seating permanent.
Yes.
It's the way to do it.
It is a popular spot.
Yep.
With that, I would move approval.
Could you close the hearing?
Yes, sorry.
Thaning you.
Second on the closing hearing.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Now I would move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the application. Any more discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have a third application for alteration of premises for the Black Dog Tavern Cafe.
Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that Black Dog Tavern Company, LLC, doing business as the Black Dog Heights Cafe, has applied for an alteration of premises to its all-alcohol common victualler license to be exercised at 465 Grand Avenue, Falmouth, MA. A hearing will be held in Select Board Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, March 13, 2023, at 6:45 p.m. on the above application, per order of Select Board, publication date Friday, February 24th, 2023, Falmouth Enterprise. Thank you.
Brian Beaton, attorney on behalf of the company, here tonight, answer any questions.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Madam Chair, if you like,
Yes,
I
please.
can will just
I'm sorry,
comment
yes.
briefly. Sure. The applicant seeks an alteration of premises to match existing conditions as depicted in the certificate of inspection. And I believe that certificate of inspection was, that was the piece that we were waiting on to approve this alteration of premises. The number of seats in the alteration of premises is subject to a lease for additional parking. The applicant has provided a one-year lease to meet this requirement. Staff have reviewed the application and raised no concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson-Staub. Questions from the board? Mr. Brown?
Get clarified, what is the actual change that
It's a great question. I was actually gonna, this is a somewhat unusual situation in that we're actually not changing anything. There was a discrepancy between, as was pointed out, there's a discrepancy between the number of the seating and occupancy numbers that we were allowed and then the certificate of inspection. So the number is actually going down, believe it or not. So there's no change in the actual physical premises, no change in the size of the outdoor space. We went through this exercise, again, just to make sure that everything was consistent.
Okay.
And this form was required as part of that state process, so that's why we.
Got it.
A little unusual.
Any other questions from the board? Comments? Any comments from the public regarding this application? Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sir? No, we just closed the
Almost
hearing.
done.
Sorry.
Close the
We're not
hearing.
done yet. We're going to talk about you
A
now.
little too anxious.
I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the application. Any more conversation from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna wait now.
Now you're good. We can dismiss you now. Okay, we have another hearing, alteration of premises, all alcohol club license, Green Pond Yacht Club.
Madam Chair, I think we want to do the Flying Bridge.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Flying Bridge.
That's okay.
Excuse me. Let's do that
Notice
one
is hereby
first.
given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that Sailors, Inc., doing business as Flying Bridge Restaurant, has applied for a change of ownership interest and issuance, transfer of stock, new stockholder of its all-alcohol common victualler license located at 220 Scranton Ave, Falmouth, Maine. A hearing will be held in the Select Board Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, March 13th, 2023, at 7:30 p.m. on the above application. Per order of Select Board, publication date Friday, March 3rd, 2023, Falmouth Enterprise.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson-Staub?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a fairly routine issue as far as the board's role is concerned. All of the required documentation has been provided for this change of ownership and issuance of stock. I recommend approval.
Thank you. Attorney Clower?
I have nothing really to add. There's no change in the operational management of the restaurant. Tyler Hayes is with us tonight. He is the manager of record. He'll be staying on as the manager of record. This is simply a change in the ownership interest of the parent company.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
No.
Any public comment regarding this license request? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion among the board.
Don't see anything of concern. Everybody's going to stay in place. The operation's not changing, just the ownership, right?
I'd move approval.
Okay, we have
Second.
a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll get to Green Pond.
Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that Green Pond Yacht Club, LLC, doing business as Green Pond Yacht Club, has applied for an alteration of premises to its all-alcohol club license to be exercised at 366 Minot Road, East Falmouth, MA. A hearing will be held in the Select Board Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, March 13, 2023, at 6:45 PM on the above application. Report of Select Board publication date, Friday, March 3rd, 2023, Falmouth Enterprise.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson-Staub?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant seeks to add outdoor seating to the licensed premises. When outdoor seating is in use, the applicant will be closing the second floor seating, and as such, the total occupancy for the license remains unchanged, and there is no flow-neutral bylaw variance required. Staff have reviewed the application and raised no concerns.
Thank you. Attorney Clower?
Good evening again. I am here tonight with Kevin Harrington, owner of Green Pond Yacht Club. For the last 3 seasons, they have been operating outdoor seating under the COVID rules, and it's been very successful and very popular with their members. They'd like to make that permanent. Their seating is limited by the parking, so the seating will remain the same. It's 62 overall seats. They'd like the ability to kind of flex those inside or outside on a weather-dependent basis to remain at 62, the same as many other restaurants have done over the past few years. And I think they've established a good track record of this working for them, and I'm not aware of any issues that have come up, and I think that this is a very positive addition to town. Despite having one of the longest coastlines in the state, we have very few outdoor seating opportunities on the water, and I think that this is a really welcome addition.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the board?
Looks like fun.
Any other comments?
I don't see any concern.
Any comments from the public regarding this license application? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your
No,
time
we
tonight.
just closed the hearing.
I should know better.
You just had a...
I'll give Brian the pass. I should know better.
Yes. Discussion among the board?
I don't see any problems with it. It's the same arrangement you've used the last few years, 2 years, I say.
3 summers.
I'd move approval.
3 summers, right?
Second, Scott Price.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the application. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Now you
I
can-
appreciate your time this evening. Have a great night, guys.
You too. Okay, we will move on to business. And we have an update from our screening committee.
Madam Chair, I'm going to recuse myself.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson-Staub. And tonight, we have here with us the screening committee members, and we have our consultant, Rick White.
Good evening, and thank you for having us. I guess tonight I'm declaring the beginning of the end of the town manager search process. Tonight, the screening committee will complete their charge by providing you their final report. Before they do that, I've been asked to give a recap on how we got there, and I'll do that. But before I do, I just would like to thank professionally and personally the screening committee for their incredible diligence, their hard work, their patience and understanding, and the work that they did. It was true pleasure working with them, and the town is very lucky to have citizens like them. Chairman Keith Schwagel will make a report after I just share some particulars with you. We were engaged to perform this executive recruitment service just in the beginning of December. Christmas holidays are a very tough time to recruit, so we purposely waited until after the holidays to put any ads in. But during the month of December, I met with all the department leaders and over 20 community leaders that you identified to be interviewed to define the opportunities and challenges that the next town manager will face who comes to Falmouth. I presented that both to the screening committee and to individual select board members and secured their feedback. It's a very unique town with very unique challenges and a very unique culture requiring a very sophisticated and a very unique professional. And I think the screening committee will make its recommendations to you, and any three of them, I think, can meet that. The feedback that was received was used to develop the recruitment brochure, and that was sent to over 400 professionals in the field, placed on your website, placed on our website, and distributed through a network of friends and professional colleagues that I have. On or about January 10th of 2023, advertisements were posted in the International City County Managers Association and Massachusetts Municipal Association job websites, as well as the Cape Cod Times, the Falmouth Enterprise, and the National Forum for Black Public Administrators. We were very pleased with the volume of applicants and believe that we got a representative quality of candidates that we could work with. The Select Board, in addition, held a public forum inviting the public to express their insights as to the experience, qualities, and backgrounds desired of Falmouth's next town manager. Those were provided in addition to the synthesis that I wrote to all of the candidates and used by the screening committee as a foundation for how they go about doing their business. We did make a report to you on the 6th of February as to our progress, and the screening committee began meeting in earnest in the beginning of February and began its interviews for prospective candidates starting February 18th. I'll turn this over to Keith Schwagel, who is chairman now, who will give the committee's report, unless you have any questions.
Any questions? Mr. White?
No.
Comments? Thank you. Please.
Madam Chair, Select Board members, Keith Schwagel, Chairman of the Town Manager Screening Committee. As Rick said, we started with 37 applicants, and that was made up with 5 females, 2 black males, 30 Caucasian males. Interestingly enough, 15 of the 37 were out of state. They came as far away as Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Tennessee, Connecticut, New York, Vermont, and Florida. So in the end, what we looked at when we went through all the 37 applicants, the first thing we did was look at their qualifications and how they met the qualification requirements in the Home Rule Charter. And that's how we started it. And we narrowed it down to 10 interviewees. 1 female, 2 black males, 7 Caucasian males. So we ended up with that, and we did our interviews, and we, as I think you may have read in the memo already that we sent you, how we approached that with the 5 areas. I believe that we focused on the 5 critical areas: chief municipal officer experience and background, financial management knowledge and experience, management style, experience and background with a Falmouth-type community, and qualifications and experience dealing with issues and programs similar to that in Falmouth. So I guess at this time, we'll just cut to the chase, and I can give you the 3 finalists, their names. This is alphabetically. This isn't how we ended up. It's just the best way to present it. Peter Johnson Staub, his residence is Sandwich, Massachusetts. Michael Renshaw, Winder, Georgia. And Matthew Wojcik, Westport, Massachusetts. So,
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last name?
The last one
The last one.
is Matthew Wojcik, W-O-J-C-I-K, Westport, Massachusetts. We think any one of these people would make an excellent town manager. So it's now up to you. We turn it over to you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve on this committee. It was quite a good experience. The members of the committee, I cherished working with them, and some of them are the real icons of the town. And so it was quite a good experience for me, and I thank you for that opportunity. And we turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions of either Mr. Schwagel from the committee or Mr. White, our consultant? Any questions?
And two of the members are here. I think it was Catherine Bumpus and Frank Duffy is somewhere in here.
Yes,
There he
he's
is,
right there.
You blended in there, Frank.
I think
Any
you've,
questions?
I think you've preemptively answered our questions with all your explanation of the process.
Okay. And I have a formal report for the chair, if I could go and do that.
And I just really, really want to thank the committee members for their commitment to this process. It's the most important thing, from my perspective, that is on the select board's plates right now, is to make sure we get the right person to lead our town. And you've done a good part of the work for us, so thank you so much for that. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to let board members know that the resumes and the memo from Mr. Schwagel, they're in your mailboxes, so make sure you get to your mailboxes and you take the resumes and cover letters home and take a good look. And I will just to kind of wrap this up, I just want to let people know what our next steps are. So tentatively, on Sunday, March 16th, from around 9 o'clock until 1 p.m., the select board will be having individual one-on-one meetings with the candidates, with the three of them. Not as a committee, it's not a public meeting, it's simply that we will have one-on-one interviews. Also, on Sunday, March 26th, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. here in the select board meeting room, we're going to have a meet and greet with the candidates. That will be a posted meeting, even though we won't have any business at that time. But that will be open to the public for anyone to come meet the candidates, ask them questions. It's more of a social event. And then the select board meeting on March 27th, we will be interviewing each of the candidates. The public is welcome to come. However, the public will not be interviewing the candidates. That's for the board. And then we will have, and that will be in the Herman Room at the library, and then we will close that meeting and we will have a business meeting the same night at 6:30. I spoke with Diane Davidson, and we will get information out in the newspaper for everyone and certainly put it on our website. But again, thank you very much to the committee. Thank you for the work of our consultant, Rick White. We really appreciate it. And we'll take it from here. Thank you. Okay, we can move on to the presentation options for expanding real estate tax exemptions and abatements. That was good timing, Mr. Johnson-Staub. Thank you.
I got the thumbs up from Keith.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, excellent. All right, Ms. Favuli, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and Mr. Johnson-Stahl. We're here tonight, myself and Finance Director, Mr. Centerio, and we're going to review our existing elderly exemptions and some potential articles for coming up to change some of them. Currently,
Don't forget to tell us who you are.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Doug. Tricia Favuli, Director of Assessing.
Thank you.
So we're going to review those, review the current tax exemptions, our upgrade options, review the approach concerning residential exemptions for the public, review tax work-off information, increase benefit estimates of raising the value of the current exemptions that we have, and select board discussion and preferences of those exemptions. These are the current exemptions that we already have available. We have seniors 70 and older, which is a clause 41C, and they're granted $500 off their annual taxes. Seniors 65 and older, surviving spouses, with minor children, and that's a clause 17C, 1.5. Veterans, clause 22, 22A, 22C, and 22E, with various amounts of money off their taxes from $400 to $1,000, or a complete exemption for a surviving spouse of a widow who has a spouse that has died with a war-related illness. Blind persons, which is a clause 37, and that's $437.50 off their annual taxes. And a property deferral tax, which allows us to grant a full tax exemption and defer their annual tax property. for each one of the exemptions, there's qualification status that they need to meet. So for the seniors with the $500 tax exemption, the requirement is 70 years of age as of July 1st of the year of granting, must be their primary residence in Massachusetts for 10 years, and own property in Massachusetts for 5 years, and occupied that dwelling as of July 1st of the granted year. Assets are not including the home, cannot exceed $30,000 if single, $40,000 if married. Income previous calendar year, which is extremely low when you hear a single person, cannot be above $21,452 and $26,599 for a married couple. And that allowable amount is based on Social Security, less subtracting an exclusion of $7,800 for married and $5,201 for single. The requirements for a tax deferral is that you're 65 years of age as of July 1st of the granted year, primary resides in Mass for 10 years, owned and occupied property in Massachusetts for 5 years, and once again, they have to occupy the property as of July 1st. Their income previously for the calendar year is less than $40,000 a year. That deferral allows them to take that base tax and defer it annually up to 50% of their base value of their home. They also can qualify for the other exemptions prior to the deferral and defer the remaining taxes. Disabled veterans. 100% disabled veteran is exempt of $1,000 off their taxes. Partially disabled veterans exemption starts at $400, and that ranges from a 10% disability to a 95% disability, and then it jumps up to 100%. We also have paraplegic discount also, and that's 100% of their taxes. Falmouth is one of 15 Cape towns with 70-year-old requirements and age income limits, where the exemptions start at 70. The other municipalities, you can start your exemption at 65 via local options. So if we were to change any of the age or income requirements, it would be a local option that would be required to go to town meeting. 2 of the 15 towns offering $500 versus $1,000 via local options. One community goes up as high as $1,500 with special legislation over and above the local option. 5 of the 15 towns at $437.50 versus $500 for blind. So several of the other towns have already gone ahead and done that local option. Mr. Centennial has reached out to the South Shore Community Action Council for fuel assistance program data. And currently they have 51 households on fuel assistance between 65 and 69 years of age. 174 households age 70 plus are on fuel assistance. Falmouth provides exemptions to 33 households that are on their list already. South Shore Community Action will contact their customers if we contact them for any changes that we would make to that list. And at this point, Mr. Centennial will take over this half.
Trish.
You are welcome.
Hi, Ed Santio, Finance Director. What we're recommending to the board, just because of changes in cost of living, and obviously you all are talking about affordable housing and making it easier for people to live here, is to potentially look at moving the exemption for those that are of low income and elderly down to 65 as opposed to 70 years old, and also moving the exemption amount to $1,000 from $500. In addition, as you saw and Trish pointed out, the income levels and asset levels are very low. There's an opportunity to actually index those levels to inflation, basically, so that those levels can rise every year. And in addition, we'd like you to consider moving the blind exemption to $500 from $437.50. Just to give you an idea of what the benefits would be, the dollar amount as it relates to what the town of Falmouth would offer. When you look at the current benefit, as Trish indicated, 31 people are taking advantage of the elderly or senior exemption, and it costs $15,500. And based on the South Shore Community Action Council's numbers, looking at the high side, we would say that perhaps 51 of their customers might take advantage of the exemption for $1,000, so that would be a total amount of $51,000. And then if the amount is raised from $500 to $1,000, then that would be $31,000 for the existing participants in the program, for a total of $82,000. And the additional amount over the $15,500 would be $66,500. And then over time, as the amounts get indexed to inflation, that the number of people or participants may grow. And then when you look at the blind statistics, these would be all existing participants. If we raised the amount, the additional benefit would be $1,250 per year. And in the case of the blind individuals that live within Falmouth, we're getting about an 80% reimbursement from the state. We also talked about, the board talked about having a workshop so that you all can discuss with the staff, providing information, doing a residential exemption. We just want to let you know that it will take about 12 months to put together that type of program so that we can verify who is in fact a resident versus those that are not residents. It will also require additional staffing because of the increased amount of work. Excuse me. And the residential exemption doesn't apply the same across all properties. Those folks at this point in time, based on Trish's analysis when she gave the tax rate presentation earlier, those with $1,035,000 and $1,350,000 in property values would actually pay more in taxes than they would today. And then if you are going to do that for the non-residents, you may want to consider exempting personal property tax, the bill that goes for those folks that have a property and they have furniture in their homes. They get charged a small amount of taxes that a lot of people call a nuisance tax, and it's difficult to collect. You can't lien it. It's one of those things where many communities actually go up to a $10,000 exemption for that. And then there are also opportunities to put in place a CPA or a set of CPA tax reductions where you can exempt, and this isn't in your packet, I'm sorry, where you can exempt up to $100,000 from CPA for a particular property, and for low-income individuals, they can have their CPA taxes eliminated. The tax work-off program, I guess, prior to my being here, has discussed the tax work-off program. And this, I think, the people indicated felt that there should be an income requirement. You can choose whether or not to have an income requirement, but you are blessed with a lot of volunteers, so this program could actually result in a lot of money being spent on this program. And you may want to consider targeting this to those folks that have a lower income level if you do choose to go in this direction. In addition, you may want to limit the size of this program. Again, I think Falmouth is blessed with a lot of volunteers in a lot of different areas, so that may end up being something that you would start at the beginning at least, and you could look to expand it or extend it. And then just to let you know, there's significant work on the part of those folks in senior services, human resources, payroll, and assessing to administer this program. And this could be part of the workshop if you choose to have it part of that residential exemption workshop. And if the board has questions or would like to discuss this further.
Mr. Johnson's job?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Tricia and Ed covered it really well. This is early. We wanted to bring these options to the board to consider and raise questions. I say early in that if there's something that, if there are actions that the board wants to take on these exemptions, they would be brought to the November town meeting. So at this point, you know, if there are questions that you have, or, you know, if there are certain exemptions that you're sort of, that there's consensus on that we want to move forward on, we can do any additional due diligence in terms of costing them out and communication and analysis in terms of the staff work that would need to be done to implement any of these. But we don't need a decision per se from the board tonight, just general direction.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'm wondering, obviously, as mentioned, we're gonna need more staff to implement this. So does it make sense for us to have more staff on hand before we implement this, or would there be time for us to hire if we decided to implement this on November town meeting warrant?
I think it depends on the program that you implement. So if it's the residential exemption, definitely. If it is the extension of some of the existing benefits for younger folks, 65 and older, and to increase their amounts, we would look at that. That may or may not involve staff. We're working with our sister town, the town of Yarmouth, on some things that may help to automate the exemption process. So we'll be looking to do some automation and try to streamline it as much as possible, do fill-in PDFs, do online forms, those types of things to reduce the amount of workload. But definitely, if it comes to residential exemptions, we'd be looking at increasing staff.
Right now, we currently grant 400 exemptions. That's what the age and the income limit that we exist right now. I'm anticipating if we're going to drop down the age and increase the income, that we're going to double that amount. That's your best guess that you can do in talking with a few of the other towns when they made their changes, what happened with them. It's hard to really tell until you actually have feet on the ground with that. If we can do some automation on that. With COVID, we transferred a lot of by mail applications, and we're starting to do some email with some of our seniors that are computer technologies, which we have a lot of them, we're finding. So if we can do some of that, that's going to take some pressure off of the staff, but it's almost a wait and see what we do the first year.
And one of the things we talked about was potentially having some temporary staff during the program startup. So what we could do is potentially have somebody in the office to either help out with the counter or the phones and have other staff work on it, or vice versa. And we'd look to do workshops which would help people fill it out in a concentrated period of time rather than having that extend throughout the year. And then just for the current 408, a lot of those are veterans that we wouldn't look to change.
Correct.
So it would just be the 31 that are now participating in the elderly exemption, where that could go up to potentially 81, depending on whether South Shore Community Action Council has that count right. And we do a lot of outreach to reach the folks that could benefit from this particular program. And Southeast Community Action Council has been great. I've worked with them before about, we can't get their list, but what they'll do is they'll send out a mailer for us, letting their customers know that we've increased the benefits that the town of Falmouth is providing to their low-income individuals if that program goes forward.
Comments? I'll start with Ms. Scott-Price.
Oh,
I thought you were raising your hand. Mr. Patterson.
Yes, I know the Cape Cod Commission has told us that almost 900 families leave Cape Cod every year. Do we have a focus on Falmouth as to how many Falmouth families are doing that? I mean, that probably includes a huge span of ages. That's not just the elderly or the people that fall into these special categories. But do we have a handle on how many families are leaving Falmouth because of the economic pressures that they're experiencing?
Mr. Patterson, I think that would be something that we'd want to look at the Register of Voters, because most of our people that are leaving Falmouth are selling their homes at an advanced price compared to what the market was 5 years ago, and a lot of those are our seniors. So I think where your true answer would come from is the amount of registered voters that are leaving, because those are the people that may not be homeowners.
Right.
So that's where we might want to look at that.
So the answer is you don't have a handle on that. But
We know
that's
how
the-
many sales happen, how many people sell their homes.
Sure.
A lot of those people that sell their homes stay on Cape and go into senior living, or sell their homes to buy a smaller home or a larger home, depending on their family makeup. How many people actually leave the Cape for sales on homes is hard to trace, because when they're selling their home, they're listed on their deed as occupying that dwelling. They're not leaving an exiting address.
Right.
But I think we might talk to the clerks to actually see what their census change is.
Because that's the cohort that I would be most concerned about. You know, how can we allow people to stay here that are stressed financially to pay, certainly if they're renting.
Correct.
The increase in rental costs are just horrendous right now. So, so we don't have a handle on that, essentially.
No,
what you're telling
and that's 900 out of 233,000, I think,
Right.
is the latest count. So no, and actually looked over to our folks from the Cape Cod Commission, and that's just a hard data point to actually determine, but we may be able to
Yeah, maybe with the
look at
clerks.
some data, and then we can actually combine. We're actually, through our procurement, looking at being able to do some more management information reporting against the assessing database as well as the clerk's database, and we can bring those databases together to see what we can do in terms of intelligence. But some of the programs that we've talked about, like the CPA piece, some of them are not age-related, and if you can take the pressure off of the some of the folks that might be low income that are renting properties, then you might be able to, help out the renters as well. But
Mr. Brown?
So I'm very interested to find out what it would take to implement, or at least consider, the residential exemption. So it used to be 20% that you could exempt from residential exemption, and now it's gone up to 35. I guess the Division of Local Services has realized the need for it. So I think we're a little behind on considering this. It seems perfect for Falmouth because it shifts away from the people that are less able to afford it and to the people that own second homes. I know people don't want to hear that, some people, but I think it's something that we definitely should look into. I would imagine it would require us to buy a new computer program to
We'll need
facilitate
new
it.
software, we'll need more staff, because
Right.
we're talking about a large number of people that could possibly qualify for that. But the first thing we need to do is put a study in place to try and figure out how many people actually would qualify.
Okay.
And we need to be able to study homes that are in trusts with beneficiaries. It's not just having Mr. Smith owning his house, it's all the people that have their homes in trusts that do not necessarily qualify based on trusts. So it's a
Learning.
large amount of stuff that we would need to study before we could even take it to town meeting.
So should we then have a discussion amongst the board to decide whether or not we're interested, so you know to start gearing up?
I think
we have two more questions before we get there, and then maybe, like Ms. Favuli said, maybe we need to have some sort of a study as we move forward. But let me get Ms. Scott Price's question and Mr. Zelinski's questions.
This is a kind of a process question, kind of working backwards. If, let's say we want to put something on the November town meeting warrant, how much lead time do you think that you would need to be able to prepare recommendations for then us to review, to then put on the town meeting warrant? And maybe this isn't a good question for right now, because it might require some planning.
we already have the law, excuse me, the sections of the law and, meeting or information from other communities, town meetings to actually do some of the senior exemptions, changing the amount, the blind exemptions. So that's all laid out.
Great.
We can get you some samples of that immediately. I just want to also say that I think the board is planning a workshop to talk about the residential exemption. I just also want to point out, it's not just the second homeowners, it's the higher value residents as well that would pay more.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Zelinski?
Mrs. Favuli, say we go on the premise that Mr. Brown suggested with residential study. Where does that money come from for that study? Does that come out of your budget?
It's gonna have to be funded in a budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
As along with staff, an added staff position, that's going to have to be
You'd have
funded.
to find the money first before we even made that.
Right, it has to
decision.
be put in the, it would have to be put in my budget for, not for '24, but for the next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson-Staub, did you want to speak?
Yeah, just to, we had briefly talked about a dedicated meeting. I don't know if it would be the whole meeting, but I think a workshop meeting. The residential exemption it's a large and complex topic. We weren't really planning to go too much in depth of the residential exemption. My goal for tonight was to talk about all of the other ones, which, as you've heard, those are not a heavy lift. That with, if we have a decision from the board or direction from the board soon, we can gear up to have that vote in November and implement it for fiscal 2024. The residential exemption, I think I would like to be able to continue to work with Tricia and Ed and put together a presentation that really goes into some of the specifics of all of these issues that we've touched on. What's the preparation that's required, what's the staffing that's required, but also it is complex in its impacts on the community. And that is the one mechanism. On the one hand, it's the one tax exemption that has an ability to significantly benefit lower income folks who are not elderly, but it's not uniform. It may actually be problematic or detrimental to rental properties, for example. And then just to go through a series of examples of how it affects people at different household values, residents versus non-residents, so that you have a clearer picture on that. So that's just, I think it merits a lot more discussion, and we would need a little bit more time to prepare for that discussion.
Mr. Brown?
I would like to, if we're ready, I don't know if we are, but I would like to move that we move forward with all the low-hanging fruit.
The recommendations?
Yes.
I would agree with that.
And then also I would like the board to, maybe if we have a consensus that we'd like to explore that residential exemption and go forward, have the staff gather that information and have that meeting.
I think I would like to have the workshop and have some kind of direction come out of the workshop.
Right. That's what I
feel
mean.
like, okay, good, because I don't feel like I know enough
No,
about
that's
the
what I'm saying.
residential. So if we could do a workshop and then a recommendation come out of that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else from the board?
Do we need a vote to move this forward?
I don't believe.
Just general consensus?
I think we just need a general consensus.
It has to go to town meeting in November, so that would be a real vote.
Good ideas, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks so
you.
much
Thank
for
you.
this.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on for an update from affordable housing. Mr. Johnson-Staub? And Kim, I'm going to limit you to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Kim is pulling up her presentation, we wanted to provide the board and the community with an overview of the activity of the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. So, as the board is well aware, that is the town's program where we have a separate trust that we appropriate funds into, and then we issue grants to promote affordable housing projects. We felt it would be timely as we head into the town meeting to illustrate the results of funds spent thus far and look ahead at potential future projects. There is on the town meeting warrant for the April meeting an appropriation of $2.5 million from the Community Preservation Fund into the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. That's under Article 42. And with that, here is Kim Fish, our housing coordinator.
Hi, I'm Kim Fish, the housing coordinator, as Peter said, and I will be presenting a brief update on the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. After a brief introduction, I will go over current funding, funded and constructed projects, funded projects not yet constructed, potential future projects, and a brief summary. The Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund was created in 2011 by Sessions Law, Acts of 2011, Chapter 29, for the promotion, expansion, and/or retention of affordable housing. The Select Board are the trustees of the fund. It is funded by community preservation funds, reoccurring funding sources, free cash, and donations. Here we have the current funding. It's separated into two categories, CP balance and non-CP balance. The CP funds are funds transferred from the Community Preservation Fund, which the Community Preservation Committee does annually. Those funds have stricter guidelines to follow when allocating for a grant. The CP balance currently is $2,166,928. The non-CP balance currently is $2,350,359, for a total of $4,517,287. There's proposed funding from CP funds under Article 42 of April Town Meeting in the amount of $2.5 million. And Town Manager's budget includes funding from the General Fund at the November Town Meeting in the amount of $925,000. Next, we'll have the funded projects that have been constructed from 2016 to 2022. First are the rentals. 4 units at Oddfellows Hall, $215,500. 40 units at Little Pond Place, $750,000. 20 units at Brick Kiln Place, $975,000. 10 units, Gifford Street Workforce 1, $650,000. Gifford Street Workforce 2, another 10 units, $650,000. And McCansett Crossing, 10 units, $650,000. And next we have home ownership. 1 house at Deer Pond Road, $65,000. 3 houses at Lewis Neck Road, $260,000. 1 house, Pheasant Lane, $132,500. 2 Esker Place, $85,000, and 51 Esker Place. And that's an aerial of Lewis Neck Road, by the way. Funded projects not yet constructed. Here we have Scranton in Maine, 48 units, $4.8 million. Falmouth Housing Corp. has recently advised that they will only need $3,780,000 of the grant. The rest will go back into the fund.
Nice.
Potential future projects, keep in mind, please, this is just an estimate and only potential projects that we are aware of today. Acapasket Gardens, we did receive a letter of intent for 12 rental units, $1.2 million. Sam Turner Road, we did receive an application, which we're processing now, 4 homes for home ownership, $500,000. Housing Opportunity Purchase Program, $750,000. If the awards given per year at $250 each, we're still processing that. Emerald Properties, no letter of intent. Number of units to be determined. This is just a rough estimate, 2 million. 545 Main Street, again, no letter of intent has been received. Number of units to be determined. This is a rough just estimate, 1 million. Future possible funded projects total, roughly $7.4 million. And in summary, the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund has invested in many affordable housing projects. We hopefully will have many opportunities in the future to assist with funding more projects as long as there is money in the fund and they meet the requirements of the Enabling Act. I want to thank you all for your continued support in creating more affordable housing in our community. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Any comments from you?
Price keeps going up.
Thank you for your work.
I do have one question. The HOP program, can you tell us, I see it's estimated if 3 awards are given at $250 each per year. What do you think the timeline is of us being able to get that program implemented?
Right now, Town Council is reviewing it.
Okay.
And as soon as she gets it back to us, we are hopefully going to be able to bring it to the CPC. And then, based on their recommendation, then we'll bring it to you.
Oh, so hopefully pretty
so
soon.
we're very close. We're just, as soon as Town Council gets it to us, we'll keep it rolling.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we have an update from the Cape Cod Commission 2022 year in review. Christy Santori. Senatori, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We've gotten that before.
Thank you.
And I will limit you, Christie, to 15 minutes, please.
No problem.
The whole year in 15 minutes.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to be here this evening and to provide some updates from the Cape Cod Commission. I'm Christy Senatori, I'm the Executive Director. And I'm here this evening with Sarah Colvin, she's our Communications Manager, as well as Robert Muscali, the representative from the town of Falmouth to the Cape Cod Commission. I have a few brief remarks that I'd like to make this evening. But before I did that, I did just want to thank Bob immensely for his service to the commission. He's one of our newer members, but has already had a chance to serve on several subcommittees, some fairly lengthy ones, and make some important decisions on developments of regional impact. So I want to thank him and give him the opportunity to provide a few remarks at the end, if that's okay with the board. As I do from time to time, visit all 15 towns. I like to provide a brief update to the 14 boards of selectmen as well as the Barnstable Town Council, just to provide some updates and open the lines of communication and answer any questions if you have any. So what I just shared was our 2022 year in review. I just want to emphasize this isn't a comprehensive look at all the work that we did last year, but it provides some of the highlights and of our priority projects, many of which are continuing into this year in 2023. So 3 areas that I wanted to focus on this evening are critical for Cape Cod, and these are water quality, coastal resiliency and climate change, and of course housing. So in terms of water quality, much of our work has been focused on coastal water quality, and our communities are making significant progress at really addressing those nitrogen impairments that we're seeing in our bays and estuaries. Towns are taking advantage of available financing and funding as well. And as you may know, the Cape Cod Commission provides administrative and technical support to the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board. And I wanted to thank Town Manager Peter Johnson-Staub for serving in the capacity as a representative on that board. But to date, the Water Protection Fund has distributed nearly $100 million in grants, nearly $28 million just last year. And we're very pleased to see that the town of Falmouth has received nearly $7 million to support wastewater projects and projects moving forward. Last year, we were also pleased to commence work on our freshwater initiative. So while much of the focus has been on nitrogen impairments in our marine estuaries and embayments, we're shifting our focus to also now include looking at our freshwater ponds and lakes. So that began with an update to our pond and lake atlas that really helped us to set an important baseline of data and information for the 890 ponds that we do have in our region. Of those 890 ponds in the region, only 10% of those are actually monitored. So we really don't have a clear understanding of pond health in the region, so we need to gather more data so that will help us to develop some strategies really to address the criticality of what we're seeing for pond health in our region. So we really do need that consistent and clear data collection to put these strategies in place. Throughout the course of the next several months, we'll be working with stakeholders as we develop our freshwater initiative. That began with working with all 15 towns. So we've had meetings with commission staff as well as town staff to really identify some of the challenges, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and really where those areas of focus should be as we move forward with our planning. As it relates to climate change and coastal resiliency, we are working currently to implement our climate action plan. So we last year developed the first ever climate action plan for the region. And so now we're really working to implement some of the recommendations, the strategies within that plan. And we've actually initiated our low-lying roads project in all 15 communities at this point. So we're pleased to be able to address some of our more vulnerable infrastructure across the region. And we're also looking at developing and have developed a series of model bylaws that we can make available to the communities for ease of implementation. So those include things such as looking at coastal resiliency efforts, looking at electric vehicle charging infrastructure, as well as a comprehensive set of floodplain design guidelines. So more to come on that. Certainly as we look to implement the remainder of the climate action plan, there will be more opportunities for engagement. Last year, we also held the second round of our Climate Ambassador program, where we're reaching out to high school age students across the Cape, and they've been participating in a series of meetings to be climate ambassadors ambassadors. They bring back all the information that they're hearing back to their schools. We're actually in the third session of it this year, and we've actually had many students participating, several students participating from the town of Falmouth, so that's been really great to see that engagement from across the region. They've been able to interact with their peers from other schools as well. So shifting gears just very quickly to housing, as you probably know, the Cape Cod Commission has begun work on a regional housing strategy that will address housing supply, affordability, and availability issues by identifying areas that are appropriate for housing development across the Cape, by creating policies and strategies that are appropriate for our region. With the median sales price for a single-family home being around $690,000 Cape-wide, the estimated annual household income needed to affordably purchase that median single-family home is over $210,000. That's significantly higher than the median income of $82,000 across the region. So this, combined with the lack of available homes, the lack of diversity in the market, and the fact that 37% of the housing stock Cape-wide is our second homes, means that affordable and attainable housing is only getting further out of reach. I know this isn't news, but certainly the discussion needs to continue. And as part of the housing plan, the housing strategy that we're developing, we've put together baseline data and information. So I've also handed out a profile for the town of Falmouth specifically. So we have profiles now for all 15 of our communities, really setting that baseline for data and information. So it includes a lot of demographic, economic information, housing supply and demand projections, as well, are also going to be incorporated into our regional housing strategy. We'll also be working with stakeholders across the region. So again, this process also began with meeting with all 15 towns. So we've been able to meet with staff within each of the communities, as well as leadership in the communities as well, to understand where some of the major challenges are and what some of the strategies are that have worked and how we can incorporate recommendations into our regional housing strategy. And then finally, last year we held our annual One Cape Summit, and it was the first time we'd been back in person again in a couple of years, which was really nice. I know some of you were able to attend. We are in the planning stages of that for this coming summer, so we'll certainly be back in touch with more information in the next couple of weeks or so to at least identify the dates and locations. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share some information. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any, but I did just want to make sure that Bob has a chance, if that's okay with the chair, to say a few remarks. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, Bob Miscali, T-Ticket Precinct 9. Madam Chair, members, Mr. Johnson-Staub. First, I wanted to thank you for the confidence you had in appointing me as Falmouth's representative on the Cape Cod Commission. I wanted to thank Christy for her very kind words and say that it's an honor and a pleasure to work with Christy and her dedicated and highly qualified staff as we deal on the commission with the land use planning, economic development, and regulatory issues that affect the citizens of Barnstable and the 15 towns of Barnstable County. Certainly the issues that Christy highlighted tonight are of prime importance to the town of Falmouth, and it is reassuring to be able to rely on the Cape Cod Commission and collaborate when appropriate with the Commission as we go forward in trying to deal with those three particular issues and many more. So thank you again for the opportunity to present along with Christy, and if there's any questions, we're both here to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Miscali. Questions or comments from the board?
Just
Mr. Brown?
comments. I just appreciate the evolution that you continue to be on from a regulatory agency to a planning agency. It's such a useful help, and this housing profile is really very interesting. So thank you.
Ms. Scott Price?
I was just mentioning, you mentioned the low-lying streets initiative, and I'm excited that we're going to have a sustainability coordinator hopefully soon, and that sounds like the perfect thing for somebody in that position to work on, and they're not starting from scratch on things like that. It's pretty great.
Yeah, we missed our chance to get in on that one because we just didn't have enough people paying attention. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to an update, municipal broadband, municipal light plant. Artie Gaylord. Is Artie here? Oh, there it is. And you have 10 minutes.
Oh, thank you. Art Gaylord, speaking on behalf of FalmouthNet. Tonight I'd like to briefly raise three issues or topics. for the board. The first and probably the most critical is that we believe that there might be an opportunity to request funds from Barnstable County, ARPA funds, to do the next level of study to necessary for progress on Falmouth Net. This would be we did a low-level design.
Thank you, Mrs. Bumpus.
We did a low-level design, which you saw, which is as an engineering study, and this next one would, I'm sorry, a high-level design. This next one would be a more detailed, low-level design, which would basically look at all the poles and figure out exactly what would be needed to install fiber on them. It would also do additional work in terms of planning for underground use. This is something actually that Selectman Brown suggested that we look into as a possible use of the county's ARPA's funds. And so we did a solicitation for a proposal for this, and it would cost about $500,000 to do this. Falmouth Net would be willing to, write a proposal to a request for funds to the county, but we would be seeking the endorsement of the select board to back this application. I think that would give it a lot more credibility and a lot more power. Additionally, although we don't know if any matching funds would be necessary, it's possible that that would be a condition of any award. And although Falmouth Net has some money to do this, we may not have all the money that would be needed to do a match. And so we potentially could ask the town in the future for to help with the match. The second item is something which I believe you might be already aware of, is that the County Commission just recently sent around a letter announcing that they had grants through the Mass Broadband Institution for digital diversity studies. And these are potential studies that could be done at no cost to the town. It's funded through the state's federal monies that the state got. And this is something that I believe it would make a lot of sense for the town to have done. There's two forms of these studies that could be done. One is a very brief thing, which is basically they come and do a high-level study, do a short one-day workshop on their findings. The other is a more extensive study in which they analyze the needs of the town, the demographics of the town, how internet is used in the town, and so forth. And in my opinion, I looked at one that they had done as a sample for Everett and Chelsea, and it was actually quite good. It was a very interesting study and made some very good recommendations. I think it could be highly valuable for the town to have this. And again, all that's really required is the filling out of an application, an online application. Probably could be done in an hour or two. Falmouth Net would be willing to help do that. I think there is a request that there be a letter of endorsement from the town manager to do this. The third item is sort of a technical thing that's come up in terms of the election for the Municipal Light Board, and that is how would elected members be classified relative to being town employees or special town employees. This seems to be, it's not something which we anticipated becoming an issue, but it's come up and may be a factor in one or more candidates applying for the position.
It's a good point, Mr. Gaylord, and I did have a conversation with our town manager, and we have asked town council to look into that
I do have an answer.
You do have an answer?
I do have an answer.
Right, well, you didn't tell me.
Hot off the press. There's an email waiting for you.
Okay.
You've been a little busy today.
Yeah.
So town council has advised that there is no predetermined statute that provides that the municipal light plant board members are or are not special employees, which means it falls to the select board. So the select board could vote to designate municipal light plant board members as special municipal employees. And the way that works is it's by position, not by individual. So it would be one vote, and then all members going forward would be special municipal employees if that's the direction the board wishes to take.
And I think something about that was in the ethics quiz that we just took.
Yes.
It talked about special versus not, so.
Today, when I took it.
No, I didn't. Okay, so there's your answer. That would come in front of the board.
Yes.
And we would make that decision for the entire board.
All right, could I ask that the board try to make that decision before the closing date for applications?
Papers
Submission of papers.
for the election.
Or before the election would be all that.
I would agree. I think it would be before the election. I'm not sure that we could get it in before the close of papers. In other words, people could take out papers, and if the decision doesn't go the way that they may need, they may have to withdraw. But I'm not sure that we could get it in prior to that.
Yeah, I don't, unless it was, I know that you don't want a lot on the March 27th agenda.
Right.
So unless this is a consent agenda item, which we could talk about, the next opportunity would be April 3rd.
Okay, that might be something that we could do, the 3rd. I think we need a little more information and more conversation about that. And then we could potentially put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Okay?
I have a question about the county funds. If you're prepared to move forward with applying for that grant, will you then come back with the filled-out grant application and ask us to endorse it, or will you just, how will you want to move forward?
The process itself seems to be a little bit vague at this point. That's not a formal grant application. It's more like they're collecting requests.
The solicitation through email.
For the funds. And so we could write that Falmouth Net, as a nonprofit, would qualify to do the request. But again, I think it would be very beneficial to have the town say that it was behind this, willing to
endorse the.
So, Madam Chair, could we see if there's sort of a consensus of the board in endorsing that? I know we can't really vote it because it's not on our agenda.
Are we prepared to do that at this point?
It would be applying for county ARPA or other type stimulus funds to fund a study of what it would take to really, how many poles would we have to attach to? How many places would it be underground service if this project were to move forward? And it would be beneficial to any contractor who might be awarded the project. It would be.
I think I'd like to see the specifics of the letter, the request for the funds. Yes.
Madam Chair, Mr. Gaylord mentioned in his testimony that it was rather vague. So, I mean, I as well would like to see a little more definition to it before we threw in with it, before I did.
Well, as he said, I think it's the county's process that's vague. He's going to send an email.
He's also asking for our endorsement.
Of the concept.
Before I would endorse it, I'd want to see some more of it. I mean, I'm not opposed to it or in favor of it right now, but I'd want to see as much as I could before I put my endorsement on it
Right.
personally.
That's why I'm trying to figure out how we can get it more clear and what it takes to move forward.
Madam Chair?
I think maybe seeing the letter to apply for it.
Okay.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I'd like to see that, and then the board would be able to read it and then think, because just to endorse it now without seeing what they're applying for.
Just a concept, right.
I mainly
But I
tonight.
think we're open to the concept.
Tonight, I mainly wanted to introduce this idea
Right.
to you and see if you were at least willing to consider it.
Yes.
Okay.
I think the board is willing to consider it. Am I correct? Yeah.
I am interested to
Mr.
consider it, yes.
You good? Okay.
Thank you.
That work? Thank you.
Very good. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move on to a request for variance to a sign code. Placement of off-premise signs, Falmouth Commodores flags on Main Street, light poles, Gov. Fuller Field, June 1st through August 15th, 2023. Mr. Johnson-Staub.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Falmouth Commodores are requesting approval to install flags on Main Street to mark their centennial anniversary. Public Works staff have reviewed the specifications of the flags to ensure they do not interfere with pedestrian access. The Commodores would be responsible for installation costs. This is the first time the Commodores have requested flags on Main Street. The request is modeled on the variance approved by the board for the Cape Cod Marathon.
Any questions about this request?
No, I appreciate the fact that they took note to say that the flag should be mounted 7 feet above the walkway, which had been overlooked by a previous applicant in a different case.
So any questions about this? Any comments?
Just a comment, I think this kind of advertising for, something that's been a Falmouth summer series of events is a great thing. And I think it actually livens up Main Street as well to have these kind of banners out promoting a civic activity that we've all endorsed and supported for many, many years.
I agree.
I'd move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the board?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Yeah,
Any comments?
Okay, we have our next request for a variance to a sign code off-premise signs, Falmouth Commodores baseball clinics, and Falmouth Commodores game day signs, late April to August 14th, 2023. Questions, comments from the board?
Move approval.
I'll second Mr. Brown's.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. That's how we know it's summertime. See the signs.
Okay.
Sorry if we stole your thunder.
No, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Request for variance to the sign code, promotional special event, off-premise signs, Cape Cod Master Gardener Association, May 16th through May 20th, 2023. Questions?
Madam Chair, this is a routine request for off-premise signs for the Master Gardener event at the Cape Cod County Fairgrounds. I recommend approval.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments for the applicant?
No comments, no questions.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further conversation from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
On the 20th.
Okay.
Request for variance to the sign code, special events, St. Barnabas Church, 91 Main Street in Falmouth. Questions or comments? Mr. Johnson-Staub?
St. Barnabas Church is seeking approval of off-premise signs for all their special events planned for the year, as they did last year. This request has been routinely approved in the past. I recommend approval.
Madam Chair, I just want to make the board aware I am a member of St. Barnabas's Church.
Thank you.
I'll move the request, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second for approval. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. So,
Okay, application for change of manager of an all-alcohol seasonal club license, Seacoast Shores Association, Inc., located at 7 Fairview Lane, East Falmouth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, as you said, an application for a change of manager only. The application is complete and staff have raised no concerns. And I know the board likes to speak and engage the manager in a dialogue, but subject to that, I recommend approval.
Okay, you're here to represent the applicant.
Good evening, John Elmblad, newly hired general manager at Seacoast Shores.
Okay.
And we're excited to open. We'll open May 5th.
Questions, comments? Mr. Patterson?
just, are you aware of the TIPS regulations and?
The tip certificate?
Yeah, are you TIP certified?
Yes, I am.
Good. And your responsibility for managing the premises?
I am.
That's the important thing.
What's the, excuse me.
Mr. Brown?
What's the seasonal date? It's starting May 1st to November, is that?
So this year, we will open on Friday, May 5th, and It will go to October 10th.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
So do you reside in Falmouth?
Katamet. Yes, sir.
Welcome. Any other questions or comments for
Nope.
the applicant? I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion amongst the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you.
season.
Thank you so much. Come see us.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Can you get us in?
I can.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, stop. Name of the Sandwich Road Playground.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Recreation Department received $125,000 in capital funding to install a playground at the George Gaspa Sports Complex at 885 Sandwich Road. Most of the funds will go toward installation of an ADA-compliant rubber surface. The playground equipment that was installed at the SBLI playground, where the senior center is now located, will be reused at the new location on Sandwich Road. The SBLI playground was named in recognition of a $21,000 donation from the SBLI Insurance Company, which paid for some of the original equipment. In your packet is a newspaper article from 2005, which notes that there were other private donations to the playground, and the Public Works Department did the installation. There is no contractual requirement to retain the name SBLI Playground for the new playground to be installed in a new location on Sandwich Road. The Recreation Committee considered the matter at a meeting on March 8th, and Sandy Cuny is here with us tonight, and you can hear from her directly as to their discussion. We seek a decision from the board as to whether to retain this corporate name for the new playground. The board could consider a new name following the naming policy, or leave the new playground without a proper name for the time being. And when I say proper name, I mean with a capital letter, not an appropriate one.
Thank you. Ms. Cuny.
Sandra Cuny, Recreation Committee Co-Chair. I just wanted an opportunity to, if you grew up in Falmouth, you may remember. Well, I grew up in Falmouth, and I remember the old rec center, the one that I grew up in. It had two important things.
Cigarettes.
It had a game room for the kids when you walked in. All the youth were welcome. It had ping pong tables, bumper pool tables, and it had a swing set. Then in 1988, the new Gus Canty Recreation Community Center was built, and guess what? Didn't have a game room, didn't have a swing set. It wasn't until 2002 that you can thank the Falmouth High School class of 2000. There were 5 students that worked tirelessly for their 4 years in high school to get a permanent game room, which is now called the Teen Center, and that didn't open until 2002. That was 14 years later. And then the first swing set, what's in your packet, as you know, was 2005. That was 17 years later. So we waited 17 years. And we can thank Helen Kennedy and the rapport that she had with SBLI, who helped pay for all of the family fun runs that she created. They donated the money for this playground, and that's why we named it the SBLI Playground. And there was the Hassett family that donated one piece of equipment. I think that was $5,000, and they put a plaque on that piece of equipment. So we don't want to forget, the people that helped us get what we have along the way. And so the Recreation Committee discussed this, and what we decided was that rather than name the playground, if we just had a plaque when the new playground is built, because when the senior center became adjacent and the SBLI playground was taken down, what is that now, 5 or 6 years ago? So it's taken a long time, and then the rules and regulations changed, and so this new playground costs a lot more money. So in fairness, how about the Recreation Committee would like the Select Board to consider a plaque, maybe this playground made possible by, and you can list the town of Falmouth DPW, you can list Helen Kennedy and SBLI, you can list the Hassett family, or you can put their piece of equipment back up with their plaque on it. So, and then you could leave the plaque open in case anyone down the road wants to donate some more to that playground. But I mean, we're thankful that we're finally getting it installed, so, and it is a heftier price than the original, but this was 2005, and we are in 2023. So, that's the recommendation from the Recreation Committee to the Select Board, and that's your history lesson from me.
Thank you. Discussion on the board?
I think it's an excellent recommendation, and I would certainly be in favor of it.
I would agree too. I mean, we already called the field the Gasbook Complex, so adding another name kind of confuses it, so I think that's a good suggestion.
I agree too. I think it meets in the middle, and I think that's fair.
Like the Stanley Cup?
I would move approval as described by Ms. Cuny.
By the Recreation Committee.
And the recommended by the Recreation Committee.
Endorsing
as described.
Endorsing their recommendation. I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Secretly, we'll call it Sandy's Corner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda, and I think what I might like, Mr. Johnson-Staub, if you would just read through your recommendations as we move the consent agenda. Also, just a note that if anyone wants to hold anything, please notify the chair.
I just want to hold, just briefly, the one on the planning initiative, just to kind of discuss it a little bit, to clarify what we're doing.
Okay, when it comes up to that, we just hold
Okay,
it.
very good.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson-Staub.
Sure. So, on the consent agenda, we have 3 licenses, and they're all pretty routine. Staff have reviewed them, and no concerns have been raised. I recommend approval of all 3 of those licenses, and they are change of manager, secondhand dealer, St. Vincent de Paul, application for one-day special wine and malt liquor license, Barnstable County Agricultural Society at the Barnstable County Fairground, application for 3 special one-day wine and malt beverage licenses, Fresh Pond Holy Ghost Society, 408 Carriage Shop Road. On the administrative orders, the first item is a routine annual shellfish regulation, and that has been recommended by the Shellfish Constable. Item B, under administrative orders, the Shellfish Constable is seeking to sell oyster seed to the town of Brewster as a component of the town's municipal propagation program. Town council has advised that an intermunicipal agreement is an appropriate mechanism to execute this sale. And I would just say that the town has previously sold shellfish seed to another municipality, but it was done under a more cumbersome process. So this is not precedent setting entirely, but this approach is different. Item C, the Human Services Committee seeks to reduce its membership from 9 members to 7. There's an email in your packet from the co-chairs explaining their request. The Select Board has the authority to modify membership of committees it appoints under a recent change to the town charter. Item D is a grant application for funding to support a parking plan for downtown, and happy to speak more about that in a moment. And the last,
Hold.
Yeah, so please.
Hold.
And the last item is a routine Eversource pole relocation.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve this consent agenda minus administrative orders D.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brown, you held D.
I'm just curious how, if you could just give us a little bit more background. I know we had a letter in, a note in the packet about the planning department's initiative. And I'm just curious, does this at all relate to the previous recommendations from the previous Transportation Management Committee? And if so, how?
So what these funds would be used for is a parking management plan, and it was actually recommended in the McMahon report that was referenced in the email that we got today. That report actually recommended that the town undertake a more detailed data collection to understand what the parking needs actually are and conduct a more formal study. So, and the Traffic Advisory Committee, if I've got the name right, I'm not I'm not familiar with the details of what their recommendations were. They're not top of mind. I know that we've seen them in the past. But my understanding is that, again, they had some anecdotal information, and I think they had some, real common sense recommendations, but this would be providing some more formal data to guide us in future decision-making. So I don't know that, there may well be some recommendations that we can act on prior to this study being implemented, but I think the analysis and the data to be gathered would be something that the town has not yet had.
So this is more of an information gathering tool so that we know better how to proceed with planning.
Right.
I see. Okay.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions around that?
No, that's,
Thanks for holding that,
Yep.
Mr. Brown.
with that, I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we do not have minutes to approve. They will come to us at a later date. We'll go to the town manager's supplemental report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be brief. I want to provide an update on the police chief selection. The posting for that position has closed. We received 41 applicants, which is a pretty healthy number. I was pleased with that number. That includes 8 with police chief experience and 14 with experience working in a community of similar or larger size. And we will be proceeding with a citizens interview panel. As mentioned previously, those will be confidential interviews, but I will be appointing a series of community members to serve on those citizen panels and provide their feedback to me. And we tentatively have that scheduled for April 14th in the afternoon. That's a Friday, and that will be followed by a full-day assessment center on Saturday, April 15th.
Any candidates from within?
I really don't want to speak to a confidential process.
Okay, very good.
Yep. And lastly, upcoming meetings. I know the chair commented earlier on some meetings specific to town manager selection. The next regular meeting is March 27th. There is April 1st, we have a Saturday workshop for discussion of selected policies and board training. April 10th, of course, we have the annual town meeting. I anticipate that will be at least 2 nights, potentially 3. Your next meeting is April 24th, and then the board members did receive an email rescheduling some of the meetings for May. So we are now scheduled to meet May 1st. The May 8th meeting is canceled, and the next meeting after that will be May 22nd. So the May 1st meeting is a new meeting added to the calendar, replacing May 8th. And that concludes my report.
Would you mind just repeating the other meetings in April? I got April 10th and April 24th. But
April 1st.
Okay.
Oh,
Workshop.
and I'm sorry, you know what? I left out April, I believe it's April 3rd. It is April 3rd.
We're going to be seeing a lot of each other for the next few weeks.
Regular select board meeting.
Oh, that's right, because the first is a workshop. Okay. Oof. Okay. So we'll go to select board reports, and I want to make sure, I heard back from some members, but not others, that we're on for Sunday the 26th in the morning to do the carousel, in the afternoon for the meet and greet here. Both of those events will take place here. And then just remember, on the 27th, we will be at and these times may vary a little bit because there's been a bit of a shift. But Monday the 27th, we're going to be doing our interviews, our public interviews with the candidates at the Herman Room at the library. And then we will have our regular business meeting at 6:30. The other thing I just want to note is that you've all received an additional packet with all resumes and cover letters, and I will just tell the board that I reserve the right, if any board member wants to bring any other or additional candidate forward for the board to interview, we have that right. All board members have reviewed all 37 candidates. So you have an idea of what the pool looked like and what was out there. So while we are accepting the nominations of the screening committee, I do reserve the right for any board member to pull anyone else forward. So that's my report, and also just, again, I did I went to a housing forum at the Walkboy Church.
Yep.
Mr. Brown was there with me, and that was interesting. I thought Kim did a great job. And then I did present the proclamation on this past Sunday.
For the Waquoit congregation?
Yes.
Right.
For their proclamation.
That's a nice
Any
little...
other reports from board members?
I would like to report that last Saturday I went to the Green Center, and they are continuing to advocate for, alternative septic systems, including urine diversion. So far, it's in its infancy, but I'm continuing to follow that with interest. I feel like that's going to be one of the tools that we can use in our upper watershed, so I'm very interested to pursue that, and I will continue. The housing meeting hosted by Barbara Schneider and Michael Kasparian of the Chamber was very interesting. Again, I wish it had been a little more heavily attended. It was like only a few residents and more the people that have been thinking about it, but we had a chance to have a really good discussion about it, talk through what's going on currently, so that was interesting. And this past Friday, we had the Cape and Islands Municipal Leaders Association meeting, and the delegate, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name right now, from Provincetown, she's Provincetown Select Board member, they have pushed through some legislation to be considered into, I don't know if it's the House or Senate it's being started in, but they're trying to authorize the residential deed restriction, not affordable, but just if you are willing to put your house into a deed restriction that says it will be occupied as a year-round residence, then you can get an incentive, which is not clearly defined yet or funded. Right now, they're just looking to pass the legislation to authorize it to be in existence, and I think they have a pretty well-crafted legislation. It passed unanimously by the members present to endorse the letter. So I think that'll be another interesting tool that we have. I mentioned this earlier, but in Vail, Colorado, where we learned of it from, they implemented it because they're facing the same thing we are, that no place for hospitality workers to live. Seasonal people come and they have to live in trailers at the outskirts of town. So they were even more desperate than we are, but we're probably headed to the same direction. So they put up this residential exemption, hoping to retain just the residential use of houses rather than have them turn into these seasonal ski resort homes and then sit empty for the rest of the year. So the incentive was as much as 15 to 20% based on the desirability, and I guess the local municipality has to vote to accept it into the program. I don't know what the parameters exactly are, but what was the surprising outcome of it was so many people were using it as the down payment to purchase a property. So a lot of these younger folks have been, 15 to 20% is pretty much a pretty good down payment on a house. So it may really help with ownership as well as retention. So I'm interested to see that get pushed forward.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I attended the Community Preservation Committee, but Kim really covered everything that was covered in it, so I don't think I'll bother you with any further report.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Scott Price?
I don't think I have anything other than I realize I probably should have mentioned it when Rick was talking about the candidates for the search, is that I know that he's spoken to all of us and we've had an opportunity to ask him questions directly. So I guess I didn't want to make it seem like to the people watching that we didn't have any questions for him or that we haven't had any real interaction with him. I wanted just to put it out there that we have. I know I've talked to him multiple times and asked him a lot of questions along the way, and I think others have as well.
He's very easy to get a hold of, very responsive.
Very easy to get a hold of.
That's a very good point. I think I talk to him 2 or 3 times every week.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that in terms of process,
right,
that we're doing everything. So that's a really good point. Thank you for that. Mr. Zelinski?
Madam Chair, I sat in on the Veterans Council meeting this week. Very informative. They're very engaged. They're looking for ways to make the Memorial Day celebration more user-friendly. They talk, and I don't want to supersede some of what they're saying, but they're trying to make it more inclusive for veterans. So they're working very hard at that.
Great.
That's all I have.
Okay, any discussion on future agenda items? We've got so many meetings coming up.
Can't wait.
Yeah. I think we're pretty well full in terms of agenda items
We
for
still
the
got
upcoming
we still
agendas.
have a backlog of items to catch up on anyway, right?
We do.
Yeah.
I agree, so I'm not sure we want to add anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can make the 26th. I've already made a commitment to be out of town, so.
Okay.
I think that's the only one, but can you send out this set of commitments so that we have it all
did
on one
send it.
sheet? Well, you sent us 3.
No, I
But
sent,
when I look at this whole string,
no, I sent this.
yeah, no,
What are you asking me for?
A full
all those
calendar, I
other
think.
dates.
Oh.
Yeah, I can,
Yeah, those aren't mine, Sam.
I'd be happy to send that out, Sam.
Okay, that's a really good point. Okay, I'm thinking.
There's
oh,
more than
geez, what did
twice
I
as
say?
many.
What do you mean 3, Sam?
Calendar
There's
update.
more than twice as
I was
many.
just worried about these in terms of
Yep.
this process. But yes, would you do that
Happily.
for me, Peter?
Times and places would really be helpful too, so,
Okay,
thank you.
no problem at
I
all.
wonder if the-
It's a really good idea to organize us all.
I wonder if maybe the following day, if Sam can't make this, are you going to be around on Monday after the weekend?
Yeah, the 27th I'll be back, but I just can't be back on the
So-
26th.
Yeah, you'd need to reach out to
Rick.
Rick White to do the interviews, if you
Okay.
wanted to do them on, but then again, this was an opportunity to just have one-on-one
Sure.
conversation. So if you want to do it, I would reach out to Rick to see if the
Okay.
candidate's going
Yep.
to be around,
All
okay?
right.
Okay.
Anything else from the board? Okay, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well done,
Aye.
folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ooh, look at